repeatedly prostituted to local Freemasons, police, a Catholic priest, Satanists and relatives in order that she further dissociated and enforced the realization that there was no place to run and hide. She was also prostituted to Michigan State Senator Guy Vanderjagt, later U.S. Congressman and chairman of the Republican National Congressional Committee which appointed George Bush as president, who gave her a rosy cross necklace and told her that he and her Uncle Bob had been to the Vatican where the secrets of other dimensions of existence were kept. On one occasion, both he and Ford brutally raped her in an horrific threesome backstage at a political parade. They then took the stage in front of the crowd which included all of Kathy's schoolmates to present her with a U.S. flag which only moments previously they had inserted into her rectum. Despite these daily horrors, she excelled at her studies, due mainly to her photographic memory. No one had any idea that any of this was going on. In 1968, Vanderjagt introduced Kathy to the Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, who then abused her and used her for porn involving a French poodle which he had given her as a pet. Once Kathy reached adolescence and began to develop breasts, Vanderjagt found her less attractive and she was given to U.S. Senator and Ku Klux Klan affiliate, Robert C. Byrd, who found pleasure in repeatedly torturing her and sadomasochistic sex and porn from which she still bears the scars all over her body. By now Kathy was unable to tell reality from dreams and vice versa. This was reinforced through an advanced form of mind control known as satanic reversals, whereby every sensory input was controlled and words and sentences perverted to always have sinister double or triple meanings pertaining to abuse. She was further prepared for Project Monarch when she was taken out of school and relocated at Muskegon Catholic Central High School, with other Monarch chosen ones as they were referred to. The final event which literally drove Kathy out of her mind and destroyed her one remaining normal personality happened in 1974 after a parade in Cedar Springs, Michigan, when Ford brutally assaulted her and delivered electric shock treatment in order that she would forget the event. Now every compartment of her mind was associated with abuse. The program soon began to involve high-tech military bases for further traumatization and programming. For this they used centers such as the MacDill Air Force Base at Tampa, Fort Campbell in Kentucky, Fort McIlvaine at Anniston, Alabama, Redstone Arsenal and Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, the NASA Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral in Florida, and NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center near Washington, D.C. Kathy was sold and married to her owner, Byrd, in a contract which made her father a millionaire overnight. Although owned by Byrd, Kathy was given handlers to keep an eye on and further traumatize her. One such person was Wayne Cox, a Satanist and serial killer. His calling card is to remove one hand of his victims, which he calls the Hands of Glory, who had gained immunity from prosecution through his involvement in Project Monarch. He was introduced to Kathy whilst playing for a country music band at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee. According to Kathy, no one makes it in this town unless they're slaves or CIA operatives. Names of leading slave handlers and CIA operatives include Chris Christopherson, described by Kathy as a Vatican-based Project Monarch slave runner, Boxcar Willie, who has abused Kathy's daughter, Kelly, in 3 separate mental institutions, and Merle Haggard, whose song Freedom Train is the code word for this aspect of the mind control plan. Project Monarch slaves include the singer Barbara Mandrell and her sisters, who are also owned by Byrd, and Loretta Lynn, whose handler is neo-Nazi pedophile and CIA operative, Ken Riley. Cox involved Kathy in drug running and cannibalistic Satanism with his mother. He also caused her to conceive 6 times in order to use the fetuses in these rituals, and became the natural father of Kathy's only daughter, Kelly, who was born in 1980. During one drug run with Cox to Tinker Air Force Base in Ouachita National Forest near Hot Springs, Arkansas, Kathy met then Governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton. She was then cued to reveal to him a secret message from Senator Bennett Johnson of Louisiana and then handed over a particularly fine batch of cocaine, Clinton's drug of choice, for his personal use. In 1980, Kathy was programmed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, a confessed neo-Nazi and founder of the Himmler-inspired Temple of Set, Satan, who holds top-secret clearance in the DIA's Psychological Warfare Division. He was also once charged with ritual and sexual abuse of children at the Presidio Daycare Center in San Francisco. He used atrocious trauma techniques using NASA technology on both Kathy and Kelly. Perversely, Luciferian religions are constitutionally protected in the USA and Britain. One sex slave training camp is known as the Charm School in Youngstown, Ohio, and is operated by the governor, Dick Thornburgh, governor of Pennsylvania, U.S. Attorney General and Secretary for the UN. Here he worked with Congressman Jim Traficant using high-tech programming techniques. A further insight into the New World Order mentality comes from these passages from Transformation of America. Byrd often threatened me that I was considered disposable because after all, the first presidential model, Marilyn Monroe, was killed right in front of the public eye and no one knew what happened. Furthermore, he loved to hear himself talk and would often drone on and on in his famous long-winded recitations, while I was photographically recording every word he said. He detailed the inner operational structure of the world domination effort, including psychological warfare strategies, and explained how he had and would use his expert knowledge of the Constitution to manipulate it and the so-called U.S. justice system, and more. Byrd justified mind control atrocities as a means of thrusting mankind into accelerated evolution, according to the neo-Nazi principles to which he adhered. He justified manipulating mankind's religion to bring about the prophesied biblical world peace through the only means available - total mind control and the New World Order. After all, he proclaimed, even the Pope and the Mormon prophet know this is the only way to peace and they cooperate fully with the project. My highlights added, he adhered to the belief that 95% of the world's people want to be led by the 5%, and claimed that this can be proven because the 95% do not want to know what really goes on in government. Byrd believed that in order for this world to survive, mankind must take a giant step in evolution through creating a superior race. Byrd believed in the Nazi and KKK principles of annihilation of underprivileged races and cultures through genocide, to alter genetics and breed the more gifted, the blondes of this world. Kathy's first position as a presidential model was to Ronald Reagan, known to slaves as the Wizard of Oz. One of his favorite pastimes was perverted porn, especially bestiality. He would instruct his personal pornographer, Larry Flynt, owner of Hustler magazine, to make pictures to his own specifications which became known as Uncle Ronnie's bedtime stories. Reagan's personal attaché, Philip Habib's favorite pastime was to sodomize Kathy whilst electrocuting her to create the desired rectal spasm. Habib later introduced her to King Fahd of Saudi Arabia, whose tastes were frighteningly similar. Fahd was to fund the Contras via Panamanian dictator and CIA operative, Manuel Noriega. For Reagan and Kathy was used as the messenger in Operation Carrier Pigeon. One of the most brutal of all of Kathy's abusers was Dick Cheney, White House Chief of Staff to Ford, member of the CFR and later Secretary of Defense to Reagan, despite having no military background. He would regularly organize an event known as a most dangerous game. This involved releasing monarch slaves into the woods and then hunting them down with dogs and guns for sport as a means of further traumatizing victims as well as for his own perversity. One operation, organized by Cheney and Ford, was Operation Shell Game. This involved Kathy being used as a carrier pigeon. He, Ford, began talking as though I were a machine and he was dictating a message. Take this message to Dick Cheney, Pentagon. The mob has agreed to transfer the $2.3 million porn profits to the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. Let's pool our money now. And we'll be swimming in it. This operation has been an enterprising success. Let's keep it that way. Cease agreement with Panama. All Mexican channels are implemented, cocaine and heroin. Hail to the chief. As a replacement for Cox, Kathy was given a new handler, pedophile, ventriloquist and hypnotist, Alex Houston. Cox now breeds goats for satanic rituals and runs a trade in human body parts for Satanists. In 1982, Houston dealt cocaine to Bill Clinton whilst Kathy was taken to meet his wife, Hillary Clinton, at the site of Kathy's vagina, which had previously been mutilated without anesthetic to resemble a demon's head, the head of Baphomet, which is worshipped by the Templars and their offshoots. Hillary Clinton became aroused and performed oral sex upon her. In 1983, George Bush began sodomizing and electrocuting Kelly, now merely 3.5 years old. Her rectum usually bled for days after. Furthermore, constant threats were made by Bush on Kelly's life in order to keep Kathy in line. He also claimed to be an ET and could activate a holographic image within Kathy's mind in which he would change into a lizard-like alien creature. Bohemian Grove in California is an exclusive club where all sexual and satanic perversions are catered for, including necrophilia. Attendees are referred to as Grovers. Reagan's Secretary of Education and later legal counsel to Clinton, Bill Bennett, and his brother Bob assaulted Kelly here in 1988. Bennett has intimate knowledge of Catholic, Jesuit mind control techniques and is using them to implement Education 2000, which is designed to increase children's learning capacity while destroying the ability to think for themselves. Bennett, like Bush, also claims to be an alien. Another plan known as World Vision is a Jesuit fundraising operation to implement world peace through mind control. The Order of the Rose, a Templar derivative, is very prominent among the New World Order Brigade. Many slaves have a red rose tattooed on their left wrists. The Canadian Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, is also part of this clique, as is Vendrajeg and Madeleine Albright, who, according to Bush, rose in the UN through me to implement the New World Order. Among the Order of the Rose, George Bush is referred to as the Rose. In 1986, Kathy and Kelly were taken to Lake Shasta in California under the guise of a music festival run by Merle Haggard. This is the base for a multi-jurisdictional police force which will be used to enforce the New World Order with an arsenal of black helicopters and an army of mind-controlled military personnel. Here, Bush and Cheney played the most dangerous game with Kathy. As a punishment for being caught, Bush, under the influence of his favorite drug, heroin, sodomized Kelly and burnt Kathy's thighs with the red hat poker. When Kathy was 29, she became aware that presidential models were not allowed to live much beyond the age of 30. Plans were formed and agreed with Reagan that she would meet her end in a snuff movie, whereby she would be burned alive. At this point, Senator Patrick Leahy, vice chairman on U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee and close friend of Byrd, acquired her for a time at his own personal torture lab. He abused Kathy, which included slowly inserting a wire into her right eye whilst forcing Kelly to watch. In February 1988, 2 months after Kathy's 30th birthday, both she and Kelly were abducted from Alex Houston by his business partner and former CIA operative Mark Phillips, acknowledged by the U.S. mental health and law enforcement officials as an expert in the most secret technology known to man. Trauma-based mind control, which is the only form of human control that is absolute. He managed to smuggle them out of the clutches of their captors to Alaska with the aid of insider assistance in the intelligence community and began an intensive deprogramming which has culminated in the recovery of Kathy's sanity as well as the information outlined in Transformation of America. It was also discovered that Kelly had been programmed by Wayne Cox to die by using a mind control technique known as hypnosleep. This manifested in chronic and increasingly severe asthma. According to Phillips, the present field of mental health is so back